Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Clothing is an expression of how we feel, but it is the lifestyle behind the clothes that we ultimately want to celebrate here at the Lifestyle Link. This is why I've created this channel for you, to bring you value in steps towards creating a better lifestyle. Every week I'm going to discuss a topic that will empower you guys with the tools, the secrets to success to be in control of your fashion, your golf game, and your mental game. Look good, feel good, perform good. Thanks for joining me today. I've said this for years with kids in school, especially my kids, in the hunt for the ability to really understand the mind and how it works. No matter what you're doing, if you're at school, if you're going to the mall, if you're in sports, if you're at work, how does this all affect us really in day-to-day life? I have heard firsthand from teachers specifically that mental health is not important. It's not part of their job. Their job is to teach. So taking that premise, how can we really be allowed to teach if we're unable to understand the mind and how it processes when you are repeatedly putting information into it and trying to make it stick? This is not only teachers and coaches, it's people in management and in business in general. It's everything we do. People are trying to select on how we will go about achieving the outcome. It's not measurable. The best way to get results, not only for you or for anything that you're putting your time and effort into and for the next generation, is to really understand the background that this works in. It's really the function that our world and society is built on. But if we're not understanding the true mental side of what you're bringing to the table when you're trying to achieve a task or carry out a task, it's obviously going to be affected. So if you follow me, you know that the mind, the subconscious, the unconscious, I have a huge thirst in the way that our mind operates. All right, guys, let's immerse ourselves in this topic. I figured that I really needed to start with a question that made me go, which I brought up in the beginning, and that was my experience so many years ago when I knew my child had mental health issues and he was having issues at school. We brought up the point of mental health being a priority, and that if he is off, you're not going to get him to do his math. So that was it. It was a teacher who was upset that my child would not do a math question. It has taken him 2 weeks to finish one math question, and she wouldn't stop. As long as she had him in school, she was drilling that into his head, and it wasn't working. And I said, you know, your mental approach is off on this situation. And her direct response to me was, mental health is not my concern. I am here to teach. We are surrounded by people who teach us every day. And especially if you're in sports, you're really surrounded by people who are drilling success into your mind. So let's really look at the context of this, how it begins, some studies that I think are very imperative that you will see we take through our life. What does this actually mean with the effect of your game and your day and your mental state really affect how you will succeed in being that top 5%? Now, if that top 5% is in winning and in sports, this pertains to that. If it's in life, if it's with your kids, if it's with a career, if it's with a goal, this will all pertain to that single most important question, and that comes back to our mental health. Okay, so I want to hit this first. I do feel that this study and this point is very imperative to bring up. These are why studies are carried out, so we can understand the developmental states that we're in throughout our life. This study was carried out with a set of high school students. So they were placed in a regiment of college level student training regiment for sports. And this was all placed on early level entry college students and high school students. All the players that were put onto this regiment, so you are that sport. So that is what you eat, breathe, and sleep. It turns out with this study, what they found is that the players in the high school, it actually took immense impact into their lives and their daily routines, being changed so much. But the levels of depression that came over the course of this study was unbelievable. It actually affected 50% of the kids that were put through this program. So the point here is that sports on a regular basis can actually boost your physical and your mental well-being. So why are these kids who were interested in sports, they were gaming towards going to college to play these sports and getting scholarships, why depression? So I do firmly believe that we all have a path. And in others' eyes, when we have invested our time into something and we are actually really good at something, you are automatically considered as having to do it. You know, like your dad played football, you play football because your grandfather and your dad did, and that is the expectation in the family. We are good at playing ball, that is what you're going to do. Or you're exceptionally good at basketball at a young age, so your parents see that and they push you. For all great intentions, we do this because we want better for the people that we love. So we do intend to push them a little bit harder. Just because you're good at something, that might not be fulfilling to your need or make you feel complete. And then, of course, if you're not meeting your own expectations because you're trying to focus on meeting others' expectations, depression and withdrawal are going to happen in those situations. I've seen this firsthand with my children, and my mothering has taught me a lot of this wonderful knowledge. But not only that, seeing how young and how the ability to persuade a mind at such a young age is such an important factor to who we are when we become adults and how we learn and process that information. This is a great example of really what we do as adults. We condition ourselves to do what others thought was best. You know, that ends up us hating our job or not loving our life because it's just expected of you. You have to ensure that there is something you want and you know the ramifications of all the angles and how that will affect your life going forward. When your mind doesn't know how to do something or is not used to the pressure it's being put under and it doesn't know how to cope, it shuts down. It's easier for us to go inward and get depressed and get withdrawn because succeeding is, well, in the way others perceive it, we're not meeting those expectations. So we end up going inward. Every time you feel like this or you have felt like that, when the pressure gets too much, you start to realize that maybe those ideals of the regiments and what you wanted to do are not fulfilling enough. Every time you feel like this, you shut down. In fact, you just don't have enough information to process how that will allow you to get to the next step more easily. So how would a high school kid understand or know how to properly take on a college level pressure to succeed? There's always going to be steps and levels that we will be placed in that will test our mental health. But if we're not prepared, we are and will go into that state. We'll go back into that depressed state. You need to effectively and consistently train your brain the same way you're training your body. It is consistency due to repetition that you will ingrain, that will create muscle memory, that will allow you to do your job with your eyes closed, will allow you to play that sport with your eyes closed. But if you're not constantly updating your mind and focusing on that just as hard as you are when you go ahead and you put yourself into a regiment to succeed, how do we get past that pressure, or how do we get past that, want and need to grow but don't have enough information? So I'm going to get to us in a second, but I really want to drive home the importance of who you surround yourself, especially if you are being trained in sports in any way, shape, and form. This is the biggest direct impact that you have because you are looking for guidance. So if you are looking for guidance in the people that surround you that are helping you on your path to success in sports, in life, in anything, that's where you need to start first. So our minds are forever running around, sorting, deleting, and storing patterns of repetition into our mind. And those are through everyday things that you and I do. It's all the little details that we experience on a daily basis. But on the flip side of this, everybody does this. So just because you have learned that hard work and persistence pays off, your coach might not be in that same mindset. And they can say it, but do they really mean it? I'm going to give you an experience as well because I truly believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I've seen this firsthand, how fundamentally important it is to understand these points for your mental health and to succeed and win. A study from Columbia looked at the effects of different kinds of praise. And they did this with fifth graders. Now, I know you might call me crazy because you're probably adults watching this, But do remember, everything we've experienced in those younger years of our life has created the patterns that we are using as adults. As from neuro-linguistic programming, I understand this side of things. NLP is the breakdown of the deleting, the distorting, and the storing of the patterns inside of your brains, and why we repetitively still do things. So every student in this class or in this test setting got relatively an easy first set of problems to solve. Half of them were given praise that emphasized their high ability, which means they would say things like, "You did really well, you must be very smart," comparatively to, "You played that game really good, you must be a very good player." Okay? So half of them were given that type of praise, and the other half of the children were given praise for their strong effort. So, "You did really well. You must have worked really hard. You played that game amazing. I can see your persistence has paid off." So these are examples that I want to show you how they transform over into a coaching or teaching atmosphere if you're playing sports, and the mental health on it. For the next problem, each set of students got a more difficult problem. So difficult, in fact, that very few students even answered this question. They were all told at the time that they had done a lot worse. Finally, each student was given a third set of easy problems, as easy as the first question that all of the students had done. So in order to see how having failure as an experience would affect their performance moving forward, the children who were praised for their smartness did roughly 25% worse on the final set of problems, which, remember, was as equal to the first set of problems that they did, with only one hard question in between. So they were more likely to blame the poor performance on the difficulty of the problem to the lack of ability. And consequently, they enjoyed working on their problems less and gave up on them sooner. Okay, so let's look at the other side. For the other set of children who were praised for their ability to work hard as opposed to their level of genius in this situation, they actually blamed their difficulty on not having tried hard enough. But they actually persisted longer, and on the final set of problems, they enjoyed working through how to solve that problem. So the only difference here in this study and how the two groups were given the ability to interpret difficulty. What it meant was the problem that they were having to solve, the smart praised kids were much quicker to doubt their ability and lose confidence and become less effective performers as a result of it. If we're looking at this, praising somebody for their abilities rather than their efforts really goes to show you at a young age, this is how little linguistic teachings coming from somebody can actually change the pattern in your mind on how you will solve a problem, or at least how you filter the process in your body and what that means when you do solve or come to a dead end and you need to find another way. Already at age 10, we are programming our unconscious minds to process these life skills, and how we carry out that same system in our adult life. And as we get older, we keep validating those processes we've learned at a young age from the people who are around us. What happens when this goes ahead and this is two people who are shaped very differently? You in sports was shaped as your ability was praised, and the other one was your effort. This can have different courses of action for how you become successful as an athlete. I also want to flip this because I do believe we're not the ones always processing this information, because there are people teaching us things. I really want to drive home how important it is to really understand the people that we are putting ourselves into when we're looking for coaches, mentors, people of stability to get to the top. There was a study done with a set of teachers, and I'm sorry for picking on the teachers. This is really what drove me nuts as a parent. Really giving people power to teach other people information, but then in turn not give them a basic understanding of how the mind processes information is just kind of unfathomable to me in any sense of the word. So if I'm going to give advice, I would at least like to know how the brain is going to receive that. And if I come across somebody who doesn't think quite like everybody else, how do we navigate around those ideas? So a study was done with a group of teachers, and they were given 2 classes, and this was a 3-month study. And the teachers were told that one of their classes held Ivy League type students. So exceptionally bright individuals, and they're on their way to Ivy League schools, and they're ones to watch out for. Very brilliant. The other class that they were given were average students, by no means academically over the top. Now, what these teachers didn't know or were unaware of during the 3 months was all of these students by no means had any standout academic talent to watch for. They were all just average children. No one's intellect had been tested. It was just the premise was given psychologically that this class is smarter than this class. And that's where the study started. They were actually monitored over the course of 3 months, and at the end of 90 days, they found that the Ivy League students, when they were testing, they actually scored 28% better in in-class testing than they did when they first started at the beginning of 3 months. And the other class, the not so Ivy League academic class that they were given, were failing by 38%. The class was doing 38% worse overall than they were at the beginning of 3 months. Now, this goes to show you what the mindset of one person and how they interpret what that information was and was given affected basically 2 classes, two groups of children's education, just based on this class is smarter than this class. I always remember that study, and I do just want to bring in a situation that did happen to me that will tie the understanding of this together. We all have to remember that this plays on the mindset of having the right people around you if you are wanting to succeed and be that top 5%. There's 3 studies, 3 proofs that the way people are taught is how to teach us, and how we're learning has actually ingrained in our minds how we will learn for the rest of our life. The more information you can give yourself on your mind, the better and easier it will be for you to process what you really need out of this to become that winning sense. You're not a tough subject to get to the top. Everybody wants to get to the top of their game and succeed, so you really have to be careful. Not everyone loves their job. Not everyone's there for the same reason. Not everyone's genuine. So there's a huge difference here in surrounding yourself with people who say they're good and they're good for you, or people who really genuinely are and on the same path that you're on. I would like to remind everybody that we are all equals in this game of life. We are all human. Achievement is earned, and it comes with a support system, and that's in every area of your life. It's not just you and your mind. This is a huge factor in this. And then let's move on to you. What can you do to ensure you will be that 5%? So going back from the start, I want to talk about With Winning in Mind. It's an amazing book written by the amazing human Lanny Bassham. By every right, this man is so accredited to his work. You know, not only a 2-time Olympic medalist for shooting, he's interested in the differences between the top 5% really and the other 95% that didn't make the cut. What did the 5% do different from the other 95%? I'll give you a little backstory if you don't know who Lanny is and what this book is about. So he lived far away from a shooting range. He wasn't, you know, the richest guy either in this sport, and didn't have access to all the greatest training facilities, but he's a winner. He's a medalist, and twice. And so he really looked at the fact that, like, you know, this is me, this is my training regimen, and this is what I do. And I don't have the best of the best and the this of the this and the abilities to go to all these places and train like the other individuals do. So why am I winning and why are they not? And that's based on what the book was, with winning in mind. Really, with winning in mind, what does it take? What he used to do, and I love this, is every night he would go home for 3 hours and he would go down in his basement and he would run through the course in his mind. So he knew what was coming up and what shots he had to take and what guns he needed to use, and that's what he did. He dry fired over and over and over and over and over again, every night, 3 hours a night. With that, it became drilled into his mind. And of course, we're going back at least 40 years here with this, because this was done in this, I believe in the 80s. So late 70s and 80s is when this was accomplished. So you have to understand that the studies, that they did not have the studies that they have now back then. So what you picture in your mind, what your chant, your internal dialogue, and your run through thoughts lead up to and during and after the game is what is your mental game. For you, for me, for anybody, if you walk into something with fear, you are gonna fear. If you walk in with a "I hope I'm gonna win today" kind of attitude, well, I hope you do win, because that's not gonna get you there. You have to own it, know it, believe it, feel it, not doubt it, live it, breathe it. That is a winning mindset. I know it's easier said than done, but that is the difference between the top 5%. And if you ask them, they will tell you. They knew, they felt, they believed, they never gave up because they know. And that act of belief is the true success between succeeding and failing. If you focus on the negative, you will get that exact result. And that was proven 1,500 years ago with Milton Erickson. The mental picture is formed by what you think, talk, or write about. By doing what Lanny did every single night, he drove it into his mind, his body, his soul, that it was so down pat. There was no room for error. There were no more variables. It was a consistent action through and through. This is how we change our thought patterns and reprogram our subconscious to get what we achieve. You know, you just can't get up in the morning, or you just can't go and be like, yep, I'm winning the game today. You need to condition your mind just like you would your body for game day. The mind, body, and soul have to be aligned in this unwavering ability to do it with your eyes closed. Creating not only a mental replay over and over and over in your mind will reproduce results. And you have to understand the why behind this. Example, your brain knows the pattern. If you were to run right now, stand up, get in running position, and run for a minute straight, okay? And then 8 hours later, sit in a chair, close your eyes, and picture yourself running. The same muscle memory is going to fire in your body. Our brain cannot tell the difference between what we are actually doing and what we are just thinking about. And it's been proven time and time again. You can go watch as many studies as you would like. They've done it with skiers, they've done it with golfers, they've done it with football players, they have done it with people who are working out in a gym, they've done it with runners. You have to create a pattern in your brain. That is what this fundamentally comes down to. Your brain needs to know the ins and outs. The consistency of having success is getting rid of variables. So remembering that your brain's job is to create the best, most effective way to get to your goal. And if it doesn't have sufficient or enough information, it is unable to create a way to effectively and efficiently get you to your goal. You need to be aware when you set successful goal setting techniques that you can achieve this. Having a goal of winning just isn't having a goal. So winning what? You need to map this out in your brain. Winning what? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What emotions are happening when it happens? Who's going to be there? How will you know you won? What steps do you have to take to get there in order to win? What does that look like? How do you feel about that journey? Who's with you on that journey? And will it get you to winning? So those are all beliefs. If you don't believe and know the answers to those questions, you already are not on a successful way to that 5%. Your mental health game is not in check because you do not know what any of that looks like. You just want to win. There's more to it than winning. How is this winning achievement going to be different than, say, a winning achievement before? You have to pave this road in your mind. So feeding it as much information and signs along the way to help you on your journey to achieve this goal. If you are just focused on winning and never thought about how it's going to look after it's achieved, you will never find yourself on the top 5% if you don't. The drive is one thing. Practice is one thing. The mental game is the most important thing. It's not just winning. But most people I talk to, when it all breaks down to it, it's really not about winning to begin with anyway. It's actually about money. If I win, I get money. If I win, I get fame. If I win, I will be looked upon as being a winner, or I have achieved something. I've heard this one before too. I did it for spite. I did it out of spite. Before you can set out to win, you need to make sure winning is really what you want. It's not about being the best. We're all the best at something. A great question to ask yourself is this. Look back on anything you've achieved greatness in your life upon. Doesn't matter. It could be, your grade 5 school play, or you won a science fair, or you just nailed an awesome deal at work and, you're so proud of yourself, or you just built a car and you just finished it. What does gratification mean to you? And how long does it last? A day? A week? A month? A moment? And what happens when you achieve it? Then what? Most of us never think about that because we don't honestly believe we're going to win. But what happens when you do win? Then what? That's why we don't win. We're not looking at the big picture. We're not looking at from the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then after the end and what happens after. You're forgetting. You've got the grind, but you're forgetting your mind. You can have the best work ethic in the world, but if you don't have a mindset on how to get there, you're not going to achieve it. You don't want to create these highs of winning and then these lows of losing. You want to create consistency. So I don't mind if I'm in the top 5% because I'm top 5%. So if that means first or second, I'm fine, with that. Of course, everybody wants to win. But if you don't keep consistency in keeping that title, that's going to be really high highs and really low lows. And that is because it's the lack of information that's going to create depression. When we think, does mental health affect us in winning? The answer is yes. It affects us in everything we do. Persistence with life in all areas can only start with a persistent check-in with yourself. Ask yourself, what do you want? How is that going to look and feel when it happens to you? So this is where you need to step back and see how this is going to actually affect you and your family, your loved ones, good and bad. Sometimes winning comes with a cost. Most times it does. And it's up to you how bad you want it. Remember, you are the one that's in control of how this story plays out, how your winning mindset plays out. You know it, live it. You've got to really relive all those moments and drills over and over and over in your mind as well as when you're doing them. This will lead you to being a winner. It requires you to spend time in your mind and give that just as much as a workout as you do your body. That's when your body starts to know the ins and outs, and it'll start to be ingrained in your mind as well. If you feel like you're stuck, I guarantee this is the part you need to take all the way to the top to stay there. You need to ingrain that into your mental health. If what you just watched, please do subscribe to our channel. We have some amazing partnerships here to offer you. I always give value for your guys' time, so please go ahead and join us over at Queen of Clubs Apparel. I'm going to give you a 15% off coupon so that when you go onto the golf course, you can look and feel your best. Not just for golf, but it's for everything, fitness, work, formal wear, accessories. This life is limitless, and my goal here is to help you achieve that. So be kind to one another. Please tune in next week. We've got some great things coming up. Really, I just want you guys to remember that seeking total acceptance, why? Because it's power. It's limitless expression of self in life. So take control of yours and be the best you can be every day. Thanks, guys.